Okay, back to basics learning here. Today I want to talk about reducing radicals. So let's look at a radical. Alright, a square root radical in this case. Of course there's cube roots, we'll get to that later. This is a square root. And I just wanted to label the parts of it. Of course, this shape that looks like a long division symbol, but it's really not, is the radical sign, the radical symbol. The number under the radical symbol is called the radicand. And then there's supposed to be a little number outside that is sometimes invisible. And in this case, it is invisible. And what's there is really a 2. Because when it's not there, assume it's a 2. And that is called the index. So for instance, I could have written it this way. And the little 2 is an index. Usually, they don't do it that way. You'll see it like this. That's a cube root. That's a cube root. Now, the 3 is telling us that. Now, what does this mean? Radical 25. It means the following. What number can I multiply by itself to give me 25? What number can I multiply by itself to give me 25? Well, in this case, it's 5. It's 5. So this really means this. 5 times 5. 25. Now, when you go to solve it, let me rewrite it in a neater way here. When you go to solve it, you're saying to yourself, what number can you multiply by itself to get me 25? 5. So that's it. It's a number multiplied only twice by itself. So then the answer is 5. Well, you can put it here. So the square root of 25 is 5. Now really you should have, before I start reducing, you really should have your square roots memorized. Let me write some of them down, and then we'll start reducing. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. Square root of 121 is 11. Square root of 144 is 12. And you could continue. The square root of 169 is 13. And I forgot 14. 196, that's right. 196, square root of 196 is 14, and the square root of 225 is 15. And then I like to put another one that's very common. Square root of 400 is 20. And there are other ones, of course, but really you should have most of these memorized, if not all of them. Memorizing things makes your life easier. Do not be afraid to memorize. Do not be lazy, and think that you're going to get away with not memorizing. It's just going to make your life harder. You're going to do double the work. When things are memorized, it's automatic. When things aren't memorized, you have to fumble. You have to think. You have to hesitate. You're afraid. Am I going to get it wrong on the test? Blah blah blah. It just makes it harder for you. So I would say stop the video, write these down, and study them. All right. Now let me start reducing. Okay, now what's the point of reducing a radical? Well, if we don't reduce a radical, we're not going to be able to add them, multiply, divide them, subtract them, etc., which is the game, all right? The game that we're going to have to play soon. Now, not every radical is even, all right? And the ones I just wrote down a minute ago are even square roots. These are not even square roots. None of them are. So that's why you have to reduce them into some form that makes sense. Now, this is what I tell my students. If you have a radical 8, for instance, or any number that's not an even square root, you say to yourself, what are the factors of 8. And factors are numbers you multiply to get to that number. What are the factors of 8? In which one of the factors is an even square root? So let me give you an example. For instance, 8. The factors of 8, I'm thinking right to myself, are 2 and 4. And then 8 and 1. That's all I can think of. Now if I look at this, where do I see an even square root? 4. 4 is an even square root. So then I write it under here. You know the dot means multiply. 2 times 4. Well, 4 is an even square root. So I got it. Now I say to myself, what is the square root of 4, which you should have memorized, and it's 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4. Now it comes out of the radical sign. When you solve the square root, it comes out of the radical sign. And now it goes out here and it's a 2. And what's left? A 2, because you can't find the square root of a 2. You can, it's just not going to be even. It's going to be a decimal and probably a non-terminating decimal. And that's just a mess. So it's better to just leave it like this. Okay? 2 radical 2. That's my answer. So radical 8 can be reduced to 2 radical 2. It's the same radical. It's just in a different form. This is simplified. Factoring is simplifying, which I did videos on factoring. Go back and watch them. All right, here's another one. Radical 12. Now I say to myself, what are the factors of 12? And which one is an even square root? Now you might be thinking at home, well, I know it already. All right, well, just play along, because not every student is the same. Not every student is strong. 4 times 3, 6 times 2, 12 times 1. Okay. I look at this and I see my even square root. It's right here. 4 and 3. The square root of 4 is 2. That goes outside with 3 left over. That's it. I can't do anything with the 3. It's not an even square root, so it stays. I'll do more complicated ones in a minute. Here's another one. 20. This is the answer. 20. What are the factors of 20? 4 times 5. 2 times 10. 20 times 1. Okay. Well, obviously, keep dealing with that 4 is what I noticed so far. 4 times 5. Square root of 4 is 2. That comes outside with a 5. That's it. 5 you can't do anything with because it's not an even square root, so it stays. All right, let me do some more. Now, when I put these up, you can always stop the video, try to do it, and see if you get the right answer. That's how you build confidence in yourself. Radical 28, radical 40, radical 99. Okay, now same procedure. Say to yourself, what are the factors of 28 in which one is an even square root? Now, you might not know it offhand, and that's okay. You have your calculator most of the time, use it. But I would prefer that you try to memorize things because it'll make you stronger mentally. And that is important in academics. Very important. And in life. Now, let's see, 28. I'm trying to think to myself, let's see. Now, what you could do, let's say you can't think of it offhand. Take your little calculator, and you divide the number by the even square roots that you know, right? Like, here's an example. 28 divided by 4. Whoa, 7. See, I knew that one, but I just want to do this. 7 times 4. That's probably it, but let's just pretend it's not. 28 divided by 9. Ooh, it's uneven, 3.111. That's not it. 28 divided by 16. 32. Of course, 16 and 16 and 32. This is wrong, 1.75. So that's it. It's 7 times 4. It has to be. Because the only other option is 28 and 1, and that's ridiculous. So you don't even have to write it. It's 7 and 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Comes outside with a 7 left over. 2 radical 7. All right, radical 40. I say to myself, what are the factors of 40? 4 times 10. That could be it, but I don't know. 20 times 2. I'm going to go, and of course 40 times 1, which is ridiculous. We're not going to do it. But I write it just for your sake. I would go 4 times 10. What is the square root of 4? 2. That comes outside. Radical 10 left over. Now I want to show you something. What if you had chosen 20 and 2? Well, you wouldn't be wrong, but you wouldn't be 100% right because you'd have to reduce again. See, whenever you pick a factor pair that has a square root in it, you have to reduce again. What do I mean by that? I mean that 20, 5 times 4 is 20, and 4 is an even square root, so that has a square root in it. So you have to reduce again. Let me give you an example here. So here's my radical 40, right? So I could go 20 times 2. Crazy birds. Okay. 20 times 2. Well, 20 is not an even square root, neither is 2. So then I have to reduce 20 again. 4 times 5 times 2. All right. I mean, I could do this. Just makes more work. Look how many steps. Now I do the square root of 4 is 2. And then I have to do 5 times 2 is 10. And now I got the same answer, but now I have to do an extra step. Why bother? Just pick, just pick the best pair, the one with the even square root. 99, radical 99. This one I think screams out at you. 9 times 11. Whenever it's a double number, it's the number times 11. I mean, it's obvious, right? 33 would be 3 times 11. 44 would be 4 times 11, blah, blah, blah. All right? But anyway, you have to do 9 times 11 because 9 is an even square root. Square root of 9 is 3 with radical 11. Okay. Now, let me do some with numbers outside, because I know some of you will encounter that. In fact, what am I saying? All of you will encounter that. 2 radical 45. Okay. So here's another one. What are the factors of 20? Well, 4 times 5, I think. 10 times 2, but I'm not going to do 10 times 2 because 10 times 2, 10 is not an even square root and neither is 2. But 4 times 5 is an even square root. So now I'm going to rewrite it. I like to do things in steps. Square root of 4 is 2. Now, when you have a number outside, okay? When you have a number outside, you have to multiply the even square root that comes out by that number. So the square root of 4 is 2. You multiply that by that 2 and you get 4. 4 radical 5. That's it. Okay? So the square root of 4 was 2. That came outside, was multiplied by that 2 and got a 4. 4 radical 5. Here's another one. What are the factors of 90? Well, I'm thinking 9 times 10. Right? 30 times 3. Yeah, but I don't see an even square root in either of those. 2 times 45. But they don't have an even square root. This does. I'm going to go with that. 4, 9 times 10. The square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 radical 10. Da-da, you're done. Okay? That gets, remember, whatever you find the square root of, it gets multiplied by whatever's outside. Here's another one. What are the factors of 45? 9 and 5. In fact, that's the one, looks like an S, I know. That's the one I thought of right away. 9 times 5. Okay. So, let me write it. What's the square root of 9? 3. 3 gets multiplied by the 2. That's a 6 radical 5. Okay? That's your answer. I hope you're getting this. Now let me do one that is a little scary for people. I want to do one with a fraction. I try to cover all the basics that you'll encounter. Here's one. 1/2 radical 72. So what's the square root of 72? Well, we don't have an even one. So what are the factors of 72? Well, I'm thinking what? 9 times 8. Well, that is a factor pair. But then I'm thinking to myself, well, 9 is an even square root. But then 2 times 4 is 8. So that means there's a 4 in that 8. And that's an even square root, so I'm thinking that is not the best factor pair. But then I'm thinking of something else. Ooh, 36 times 2. Yeah, that's the one. That's the right answer. Because 36 is an even square root and 2 cannot be reduced. So then it's this. Alright, you see how I'm doing it? Now, square root of 36 is 6. Now, 6 will get multiplied by the 1/2. Now, here's a little rule for you. Anytime you multiply a number by 1/2, you cut it in half. Anytime you multiply a number by 1/2, you cut it in half. But I'm going to show you the long way. So the square root of 36 is 6. So I would go 1/2 times 6 over 1. Now, the reason I put it over 1 is because I'm dealing with a fraction, so I have to match it. Okay, now I multiply across horizontally. 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, 2 into 6 is 3. Well, it's the same thing as what I told you. The square root of 36 is 6 times a half. You cut in half, it's 3. 3 radical 2. Done. Now I'll do one more. Give you an example. What if I were to throw in a variable? Yeah, let's just do that one for fun. 36r squared x. Okay. What does this really say? It says this. 6 times 6 times r times x. That's what that says. That's what that really is. Now we know that 36 is an even square root. So that's coming out. That is coming out. R squared, well, that's perfect because this is a square root. This is an even square root. I'm not doing cube roots. I'll do that in another video. These are square roots. And really, you just pull it apart. So then I bring an r outside. That's it. I just cut it in half. I cut it in half and there's my r. And then I leave my x because I can't do anything with it. So it's 6rx. That's it. Alright, I just thought I'd show you one with a variable. I'm going to have to do more of those with a variable at some point. There's a lot of videos I could make. Here's one last one with a variable. 3x to the third. And then I'll end the video. 3 is not an even square root. It's not going anywhere. But this really says this. That's what that says. But this is not a cube root. I could also write it this way. See, and now I have a square. And then he can come out. So then I'd have x radical 3x. Because he cannot come out, because he's not a square. Or a 4, or a 6. Anything that is a multiple of 2. Because we're dealing with square roots. One last one. One last one. 8 radical 9x. Well, we know that 9 is an even square root. So the square root of 9 is 3. Comes outside, 8, 16, 24. Multiplied by the 3, that's 24 radical x. Okay, what I would say is, look at this video again, watch it a few times, and memorize those even square roots. All right, I'll get back to doing square roots again when I add them, subtract them, multiply, and divide them, and then do cube roots.